Hello and welcome to the Wellness Connection podcast with Fiona Kane. I'm your host, Fiona Kane, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about self-discipline today. I've talked about some of these things before, but they come up over and over in my clinical work with clients and just in my conversations with people. So I think it's worth kind of continuing this conversation. And I heard something this week that made me really kind of think about discipline. And so I thought I might start by sharing that quote with you and talking about that. And then a little bit later, I will talk to you about some strategies in regards to stopping yourself from going to the fridge over and over again. So I'm going to start by I'm going to refer to a quote. So I'm just going to be reading. But this is actually a quote by Jordan Peterson. And he said, you could think of discipline. So when we think of the word discipline, you could think of it as you shouldn't do that. So as in, you're being told what to do, you shouldn't do that. It's about being disciplined. Like if you think of disciplinary, that's a hard word to say. Disciplined figures in your life, it could be parents or teachers or, bosses or whatever. So I think that a lot of us, when we hear the word discipline, we are thinking in terms of that as in a parental figure, a figure who's telling us you can't do that, or someone who's telling you what to do. So he's sort of saying, yes, you could think of it as being you shouldn't do that. But he said what discipline is that it's really the integration into a higher form of freedom. So I'm going to say that again, and then I'm going to explore that a little bit for you. So he said it's the integration into a higher form of freedom. And what that's really saying is it's about not not that immediate gratification. It's actually the higher form of freedom is the action you take now, improving your life sometime in the future, or ensuring you have a better quality life. So an example of it in work or finance would be you show up for work, whether you feel like it or not. You show up for work, and you make it happen, and you get paid, and you put money away and you invest for the future, and then you're able to have holidays and live your life the way you want to live your life, or buy a home, or whatever it is that you do when you earn money, and then hopefully enough money that you can retire and be comfortable. So essentially that's an example of that higher form of freedom, is that the reason that you go to work now is so that later on you might be able to choose not to, and then you can make different choices about how you want your day to look. So when I translate this to things like actions in regards to health, so things like diet, exercise, those kind of lifestyle factors, it's that thing of I could eat whatever I want. I should be allowed to eat whatever I want right now, and yes, you are allowed to. However, actions do have consequences, but it's then kind of saying, well, okay, what's my future going to look like if I eat this now? And of course, we eat things occasionally and it's all about balance and all the rest of it. So I'm not saying you can never have a Mars bar or whatever it is. So this is not about that. But if that's all you're doing, if you're living on Mars bars or insert food that's probably not a good idea to eat all of the time, there's a problem, right? So you can kind of say I can do anything I like, and you can and eat all the junk in the world. But it's more likely to, in the shorter term, it's more likely to sort of make you feel tired and wired, and in me, it would drop my mood, certainly drop my energy, and you'd be craving sugar all the time because your blood sugar would be going up and down. So in general, it's going to affect your concentration, your mood, all of those things, and probably your sleep as well, right? And also, you'd actually will be tired all of the time. So there'd be lots of things that would be affected by that. So I would say that that would definitely affect my life, because it will actually affect my function. So it'll be affect my ability to do my job, whether or not I've got the energy to, even just energy to do things I want to do. So I might want to go out with friends, but maybe I'll be too tired or whatever it is. So it certainly does, if you kind of just go, oh, well, I can do whatever I like, and you can. But if you do that and then it means you eat junk food all of the time, that will be a challenge for you. It'll be a challenge in the short term, as in it's going to make you feel all those, whatever it is, however you feel when you eat that way. But it's also a challenge in the longer term, because you are then also more likely to develop chronic health issues or health issues that are going to impact on your life. They may impact on your longevity. But they certainly, even if they don't do that, they will certainly affect your quality of life, right? So it might be the thing of, I could do what I like now, but the question is, how do you want your life to look in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? And for as much as we have control over, of course, there's a lot of life we have no control over, but for as much as we have control over, I've talked before about epigenetics. And epigenetics essentially is whether or not you trigger certain genes and things. So essentially, genetics is like, I've got, fair skin and blue eyes. Epigenetics is more about, okay, I might have a genetic family history of something, but epigenetics is whether or not it happens. So whether or not I smoke or I eat lots of rubbish food all of the time, or I don't exercise or I do exercise, my thoughts, my all sorts of sleep, all sorts of lifestyle factors, those lifestyle factors will switch things on or off. They'll switch genes on or off. So I may not develop heart disease if I eat this way, but I may develop it if I eat that way, that kind of thing, right? So that's epigenetics. That's the bit we do have control over. And then there's a certain element of life that is luck. But anyway, based on the bit we do have control over, what is it that you want for your future? What do you want your future to look like? So if we go back to this, discipline it's the integration into a higher form of freedom. It's actually been able to hold that picture in your mind of what that is for you. So with the financial one, we're usually clear about what that is. It's, the holiday or the house or the car or family or whatever it is that you want the financial thing for. Well, often that's the same thing actually for health and for lifestyle changes. So the reason, like I know some people exercise or do those things because they really enjoy them, and that's great. And I kind of enjoy exercise. I can't say I don't enjoy it at all. But most of us do it because we like the outcome of it. We do it because of what what it helps us to achieve, right? So it's about your goals. So it's the same thing. So it could be that I want to be able to take the grandkids to Disneyland. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to go on that big European trip that I've been wanting to go on for my whole life. And I don't want to be, asleep on the bus and not able to get off the bus or not able to walk. Not because, you go on those big European trips, you're up at six in the morning every day on the bus, and you're traveling around and get off the bus, and you've got, really quick amount of time that you've got to get here, there, and everywhere, and try and find the bathrooms and line up here and line up there and walk here and walk there. If you're not really functional, that's going to be really, really hard. If you're really tired or you can't walk, all of those things. So, that kind of, it's that kind of thing. It's looking to the future and going, what do your dreams look like? Now, your dreams might look completely different to that. That's just an example, right? But the idea is, it's like, well, the higher form of freedom. So for me, the higher form of freedom is to be as functional as I can be, functional and independent and healthy for as long as I live. And hopefully I'll have longevity, but I'm not looking to be 100. But what I am looking for is all of those years to be functional and independent. And if I have any say over that, that's how I want it to be. Again, luck, all sorts of things in life, but what I do, the choices I make now are largely about that. And it's not perfect. It's kind of the 80-20 rule, because we want to have a bit of fun along the way. However, that's kind of what he's talking about. So he's sort of saying that, his example is, you're a lot freer if when you're 50, you have the physique of someone who's 30, right? So there's a lot of freedom in that, because again, you're well, you're energetic, all of the things. I actually wish I had the energy of the average person in their 20s or 30s. I don't, and I'm in my 50s, I'm in my early 50s. So that is a certain level of freedom, right? So there's that freedom too. And I've talked about freedom too before, because again, when we're thinking of discipline and we're thinking of freedom, we often think of it like freedom from. So discipline as in being disciplined and told what to do, or freedom from as in not having to listen to the man, or not having to do as I'm told or whatever. So we see those words as things around getting away from being told what to do, or rebelling to the person who's trying to restrict your life. And that's, I think, because we see it, those words that way, it kind of causes us to react in quite childish ways in regards to diet and lifestyle and those kinds of things, me included, not having to go to anyone. It's just all of us, or many of us. But so we kind of had that rebellious child come on. So you can't tell me what to do. So that's what happens when I think we kind of confuse what we mean by freedom and by discipline. So freedom is not just about what you have freedom from, but it's freedom too. Like you've got, if you're retired and maybe you have got the whole day to figure out what you're going to do, well, you have freedom too. Now you could spend the whole day on the couch, or you could go for a walk, or you could do some housework, or you could catch up with people. What all the different things you can do, go and volunteer somewhere. But you've got freedom too. So it's about what you do with that freedom, right? And the thing is that if you put certain strategies into place now, that gives you the freedom later on. So it's not like, because I always hear that old, oh well, they still died at. They still died anyway. The person who didn't drink and didn't smoke and whatever, they died anyway. Yes, they did. We all die. And there is always that. I've talked about it before. The difference. Excuse me. I just have some water. The difference between Brian Jones and Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones is that Brian Jones died when he was 27. He had a very weak constitution. Keith Richards has a very strong constitution. Obviously, he's going to be around with the cockroaches after the nuclear war, right? It's always the joke. So there's that component to it that some of us will live forever and be fine, and others won't, right? So there's that genetic component to it. However, when you look in reality, when you look around and when you see what happens for most people who live really kind of poor lifestyles, they start to develop problems, whether it can be as early as their 30s, if not 40s, but definitely by the time they're in their 50s and 60s. And these become chronic health problems. And so for most people that choose to not exercise, not eat well, not manage their mental health, not sort of deal with their stress and get enough sleep and have good relationships and all the factors that relate to good health. For people who don't do those things and kind of actively do the opposite, that they've got really sedentary lives, eat junk food all of the time, they don't drink enough water, don't all that kind of stuff. The most obvious outcome for those people, and the most likely, is that they are going to end up with problems as they get older, and those problems are going to cause restriction of their freedom, right? Because when you can't just get out of the drive, you can't drive, or you can't drive to where you want to go, get out of the car and just walk in and do what you want to do. You can't go on holidays because you need a carer to help take you, or because you're too tired now to do those things, or you just feel crook all of the time, or you can't eat the certain foods, or you can't be away from the bathrooms, and like a list of the millions of other things that could be restricting you, right? If you've got all those things going on, that's not freedom. It's the opposite to that, right? So again, going back to this, discipline is the integration into a higher form of freedom. The higher form of freedom is actually staying functional and well and energetic until the day you die, and independent, and being able to make those choices yourself. And again, if you have any saying that, for me, it's like, well, as much as say I do have in that, because life is life, I want to have say in that, and I want to make a difference. So what happens too is that in medicine today is we can keep people alive for a really, really long time. So people with heart failure, heart disease, and diabetes, and all sorts of health issues, lung issues, whatever. Once upon a time, those people would have died a lot earlier, but we can keep them alive. Modern medicine can keep them alive for a long time now. But what happens is you get put on a concoction of all different drugs, lots of drugs usually. They all cause sort of nasty side effects. They keep you alive, but they also cause nasty or at least uncomfortable side effects. And then you need to go on another medication to counter the side effect from that one, and then another medication to counter the side effect from that one, and so on and so forth. So you end up on a cocktail of medication with a whole bunch of side effects like feel like you need to sleep all day, or you've got muscle pain, or you're foggy in your brain, and all of this kind of stuff, besides the fact that whatever condition you have is possibly causing some of those issues as well. So people can live for another 10, 20, 30 years in that condition. And so longevity may or may not be a big issue. However, it's what that longevity looks like. So if you have an extra 30 years, but it's extra 30 years being really incapacitated, and you can choose not to, not everyone can choose. Again, life happens. I get that. This is not a judgment in any way. I get it. I'm in my early 50s, and there's things now that I really regret that I didn't do earlier, and that wasn't consistent with my exercise. As a personal trainer, I was a trainer this morning, and there's so many things I find hard now that I wouldn't have if I had have done things differently. Right. So this is not a judgment. This is just sort of a scientific observation of the facts, and choices we make. And some of us don't get choices, and some of us do have them. But for those of us who have choices, I would advise you to make choices that give you the higher form of freedom, right? The higher form of freedom. So, back to Jordan, he actually kind of said that, it's we have that, I can eat whatever I eat, whatever I want to eat, whenever I want to eat. It's that thing, and you can. But he said that, that's not freedom. It's actually makes you completely subordinate to your hunger. So you're being controlled by something. You're being controlled by your hunger, right? So I think it is really important to go for that higher form of freedom, and use strategies, find strategies to help you do that. I can certainly help you with that. I'm just going to stop for a moment to remind you before I go into the next part. Please like and subscribe and share this podcast, whether you're on YouTube or Rumble, or whether this is Apple, or wherever you're listening to this. It really makes a difference for me. The more people that hear about this, the more people that can learn, and helps my business, and also helps your friends and family learn more that can support their health. So please do me a favor, like, subscribe, and all that jazz. Makes a big difference to also where if people find me. Basically, you get pushed up in categories and seen more if people like what you're doing. So if you're interacting with my stuff, or you're commenting, whatever, I know the lords of the algorithms will show it to more people. If you don't, they don't. So please, if you can do that. So getting back to what I was just talking about. So I was just talking about that higher form of freedom. To me, most of the time, I make choices that are about that higher form of freedom. And sometimes I don't, because that's fine too. But it is about going for that higher form of freedom. So the other part of this conversation and I have talked about this stuff before, but is talking about how to avoid going to the fridge over and over again, and always kind of like looking for food. Obviously, there's the obvious answer, which is make sure you're eating regular, healthy meals, because if you do that, you're probably not as likely to be going to the fridge all of the time. So it's obviously ruling out Captain Obvious, that maybe you're just hungry, and maybe you're hungry because you haven't eaten enough, or you haven't eaten for a while. But we're actually talking obviously more about when it's over and over again, and generally it's when you're not hungry. So I'm just going to give you a couple of those strategies today, and because I don't want this to go for too long. But I would say that the one thing would be the idea is it's two things actually. First of all, I would just say to you, identify what it is. Are you hungry or not? So if you're hungry, then we've got to look at why you're hungry. Again, are you eating enough? Have you eaten recently? Or you're eating an imbalanced diet, which means not having enough protein and fat in your diet. So you get really hungry fast after your last meal. Eating lots of junk food, again, blood sugar will go up, blood sugar will go down, you'll be hungry again. Or maybe your gut bacteria is out of whack and that's making you crave sugar. I don't know. There's lots of reasons, which is why you come and see someone like me. But so establish, is it a physical thing? Are you physically hungry? So, and if that's an issue, then address whatever that is, or come and get some help to address whatever that is. So then the next thing is it an emotional thing? So it's a boredom thing, or it's like you've had some sort of stress thing. So commonly it's sort of people get triggered by something, having a bit of a stress response about something, and that's why they go looking for the snacks. So the first thing I would say is, uh, what you don't do is you don't say, whatever you do, don't eat the thing. Whatever you do, don't go and do the thing, because of course the way our brains work, if you've got to tell yourself not to do it, you've got to think about the fact that you've got to not do it. So you've got a picture in your mind what you've not got to do, and that sort of obviously doesn't end well, because you just say, I've got to, don't eat the chocolate, don't eat the chocolate, don't eat the chocolate. Of course, that's going to make you think about the chocolate more, right? Also, it's going to trigger all of the child inside of you. The rebellious child is going to say, I can do what I like, right? So you don't go, it's not about going, can't do that, you shouldn't do that. So what you do though is, I would say, is interrupt it. So rather than go straight to the fridge, have something else to do on the way. So you don't say, I'm not allowed to go to the fridge, or I can't go to the fridge. You just say, before I go to the fridge, I'm just going to go and do this. So it could just be getting on with your day. It could be the next email, the next thing, the next whatever you're doing, wherever you are. So it could just be the next thing you need to do, right? Or it could be like a specific strategy, especially if there's stress related, if you are kind of having that stress response. Because so first of all, like going back a step, when you distract yourself, it takes about 90 seconds to distract yourself. And often once you do that, you just keep going on with things and you don't think about it for another half an hour or whatever it is, right? So distraction is a really good tool. So it's not saying I can't do it. It's like, oh yeah, I can go to the fridge, but I'm just going to do the thing, right? So it's just doing something else first. Now, if it's more of kind of a stress thing and you're really finding that hard to do, then it's kind of like, what are the strategies that you can use that can help you burn off that stress at that time, or manage that stress at that time, that aren't food related? So for me, it could be just remembering to breathe. It could be uh, more likely for me, I might put on a song on my phone and I'll dance around a bit, sing a song that makes me feel happy or whatever. Or I might put on just something. It could be a YouTube video, or it could be something that kind of just distracts me, makes me laugh, makes me sing, whatever. So it might be something like that. But the other thing is too that, and this is a bit that I wanted to talk about, because I have talked in detail more about this before, and I'm sure I will over time, because it's a popular topic. But the other thing is to remember that if we are having a stress response, if we're having a stress response to something, then if you think of the animal kingdom, animals react like by moving when they've had a stress response. So if an animal almost gets hit by a car or something, apparently deer do this, that they nearly get hit and then they're all right, but they kind of shake it off, right? Or you see ducks do it as well. Ducks will have it, and they'll have a fight with it and they'll shake it off. So literally the human body, because when we have a stress response, all of these different hormones get released into our system. We need to use them up. And so sometimes literally shaking them off can really, really help. So like literally just shaking it off. So it could be sort of dancing it off, it could be shaking it off, whatever, but it's just kind of moving your body and shaking it off. It could be doing, like I've been doing I kind of found a sort of download where I do this it's a 10-minute somatic exercise video that I do, but the exercises are like yoga type exercise, doing the child's pose or doing kind of different stretches and things, and I find that those are really helpful as well, because they kind of just center me, ground me, and you being present in your body, and that sort of calms you down. So it's different things depending on where you are, what's going on at the time, but certainly anything that involves moving your body, and children know this, because children, if you think about sort of stress, you can have stress for a few reasons. You can have stress in your body because maybe you've eaten a whole lot of sugar, or you can have stress in your body because you've had something stressful happen. But, children, when they eat a bunch of sugar, what do? They go zooming around, they get the zoomies and they're running around everywhere. They actually know naturally they need to burn it off. They need to burn off that excess sugar and those excess hormones or whatever in their system. So it's a natural body function for us to move, and we don't often, especially if you're like me and you've got a job that involves you sitting down, we don't think to get up and move. So literally I will put a song on and then sort of get up and do a bit of a dance, or dance my way around the house, or the office, or whatever it is. So just be aware that moving your body like that can be really useful. So it's not about sort of saying, oh, I can't go to the fridge. It's just about distracting yourself and finding some other things you can do instead, and you just actively do those things, and it just means you might just slow you down for the fridge, or it might stop you entirely going to the fridge until it's the next meal or something. But it's good to get those strategies, because if the strategy is fridge, go straight to the fridge, straight to the pantry, or whatever it is, or it could be, it could be the corner shop, or place where you go and buy your chocolate bar, whatever it is. But do they still have corner shops? Oh, I suppose they do. They're Quickie Mart type places. What are they called? I think that comes from a game that I used to play a million years ago. What was it called? Oh, I don't. Yeah, Larry, Leisure Suit Larry, Quickie Marts. But 7-Elevens, that kind of thing. That's what I meant when I say Quickie Mart. Still got that language from that game in my head. It shows you how old I am. I think the last game I played was Leisure Suit Larry, so that must have been 30 years ago or something. Anyway, so uh, whatever it is, but it's just stopping that immediate response that, if your immediate response is you do it this way all of the time, every time, that's kind of a neural pathway that you have in your brain that has been taught that, have this problem, do this thing, have this problem, do this thing, have this stress response, eat the chocolate, go to the convenience store, go to the fridge, whatever it is, right? So it's just interrupting that. And it's creating new neural pathways that say, oh, feeling stressed, shake it off, right? Feeling stressed, put on a song and sing to my favorite song. So what you're doing is you're creating new neural pathways and new ways for your body to deal with those things, and or at the very least just interrupting or slowing down the going to the fridge thing. So anyway, I will leave it at that. I hope that was helpful. And like I said, please like, share, subscribe, all of that. Now there will be another video. I don't know which one's on which side, but there'll be a video on one side and a subscribe button on the other side at the bottom of this video. So please do one of those things, watch the other video, or subscribe, or both. And I hope you have a great week. And I'll talk to you again soon. I'll talk to you again next week. Thanks. Bye.